Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We continue our exploration of Sufism and Introduction by William Chittick. Today, we delve deeper into Zikr. We delve deeper into the remembrance of God. We explore this sacred portal through which the eastern face of reality begins to unveil itself moment by moment, breath by breath. The Arabic word for human being, as you are familiar with, is Insan. And there is something profound hidden in it. Insan shares its root with nisya, which means to forget. The very name as a species points to our condition that we are the ones who forget. Yet to be truly human, true to our fitra, completely and beautifully human, is actually to remember, to recall. It is to acknowledge and confirm what we already know deep in our souls. The Quran reminds us, not equal are the blind and the seeing. Not equal are those who have faith and do wholesome deeds and the ugly doer who does ugly deeds. Little do you remember. The word used for remember here is tazakkarun, from the same root as zikr. Therefore, this verse reveals something profound. It is through zikr that we become seeing. Of course, seeing from the heart, not from just these eyes. It is through zikr that we strengthen our faith. It is through zikr that we perform wholesome deeds. It is through zikr that we are reminded to what we have forgotten. And what is it that we have forgotten? What is it that is calling us back to remembrance? What we have forgotten is that trust, that sacred responsibility we have accepted by being human. Therefore, what needs to be remembered is that trust, and the one with whom we have made this trust with God, the ultimate truth, the ultimate reality, the real, the haq. The meaning of zikr unfolds beautifully when we ask these three simple questions. What is to be remembered? Why should it be remembered? How can it be remembered? The object of remembrance is, of course, God Himself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose reality is captured in the Shahada. There is no God but God. There is no reality but reality, and described in magnificent detail through all the names and attributes mentioned in the Quran. Why should God be remembered? Not merely because He has commanded us to remember Him, though He has, but because our ultimate happiness, our deepest peace, our salvation depends upon this remembrance. And how is God to be remembered? It is through following the Prophet, whose sunnah provides the model for right activity and right remembrance. Now, Quran employs the phrase Zikr Allah, the remembrance of God, 26 times in various forms. We see it in verses like وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبْتَلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. Remember the name of your Lord and devote yourself to Him. And of course, وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. Remember the name of your Lord morning and evening. These verses highlight, illuminate that remembering of God has always required the actual mention of His name. Therefore, zikr isn't passive, vague, or general. It demands an articulation of the divine name, whether spoken aloud or whispered in the heart. It's His name that has to be mentioned. People are encouraged to remember God because true life with God in the next world, depends upon this remembrance. Quranic language, to be forgotten by God, means burning in the fire, while to be remembered by God means dwelling in the garden on the day of resurrection. As God says, today we forget you, even as you forgot the encounter of this, your day, and therefore your refuge is the fire. But zikr doesn't only promise happiness in the next world. It provides the way to achieve qurbatan ilallah, nearness to God in this one. While the hearts of the unbeliever remain hardened against the remembrance of God, but those who remember, those are promised peace, comfort, rest. As this beautiful verse states, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Those who believe, whose heart find comfort, rest, bi-dhikrillah, in the remembrance of Allah. Surely, Allah bi-dhikrillah, surely in the remembrance of Allah, tatma'innul qulub, do hearts find comfort. The repetition in this verse, God chooses the words very carefully. The repetition isn't accidental. It's emphasis, like waves of peace washing over the heart. To achieve this peace of the heart in both worlds, this world and the next, we must remember God. For His remembrance calls down His remembrance, His response. Fadhkuruni adhkurkum. Remember me, and oh my gosh, God in heavens will remember you. This offers something miraculous, a promise that He will respond. Furthermore, the Quran points to Prophet as a teacher in remembrance. Fi Rasulillahi uswatun hasana. You have a beautiful, perfect example, a beautiful example in God's messenger. For whoever hopes for God and the last day, and he remembers God frequently. That's the Quran. In Hadith, the Prophet called Zikr the best act of worship. When someone felt overwhelmed by Islam's many commands and he asked for a single practice to hold on to, the Prophet replied with exquisite simplicity, let your tongue stay moist with the remembrance of God. In this profound Hadith Qudsi, he shares these sacred words from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. I am with my servant when he remembers me. If he remembers me in himself, I remember him in myself. If he remembers me in an assembly, I remember him in an assembly better than his. Given the centrality of remembrance in Quran, Hadith, one might wonder why it needed such special cultivation by the Sufis. This is because the jurists, the fuqaha, as they gradually codified the Sharia, they discovered that they couldn't impose zikr as wajib, they couldn't impose it on the community as wajib or farz, as a legal obligation. This is because that even the Quran repeatedly commands remembrance. It repeatedly commands zikr. Zikr by its nature is connected to more intention awareness than to outward activities like salah or like saum, fasting or hajj. The Quran makes clear that daily prayer itself is remembrance of God. But while prayer times, the form of prayer, they can be legally mandated, the inner remembrance of prayer, that cannot be. So the Sufis distinguish themselves by treating remembrance of God not as merely recommended, but they took it upon themselves as absolutely essential. They remind us that constantly remembering God is essence flowing through all our ritual activities. Why do we pray? Why do we fast? It is to remember God. It is to keep Him constantly present in our consciousness. As we've discussed several times in this series, ihsan is to worship God as if you're seeing Him. And keeping the tongue moist with mention of His name becomes a powerful way of achieving this vision. So what does full remembrance look like? Full remembrance means actualizing all the latent perfections lying in our human nature, our fitra, and all those that were created in God's divine image. What does that mean? When we show compassion to someone who has wronged us, we taste a Rahman flowing through us. When we remain patient in the face of hardship, a sabur wakens in our hearts. When we give generously, even if it is from little, Al-Kareem moves through our hands. When we forgive the unforgivable, Al-Ghafoor shines through our souls. This is what it means to be in full remembrance, to actualize our fitrah, to let divine qualities that are sleeping within us come alive through our choices, our responses, our words, our way of being in the world. Ghazali and Imam Ghazali and many others speak of human perfection as assuming the traits of divine names. Zikr, turning towards God, this sacred remembrance awakens awareness of God within the heart and actualizes the divine image that is sleeping in our soul. The deepest happiness is simply remembering the source of where we have come from. And of course, that source is God Himself. It means discovering our real character, which reflects God's beautiful names shining through us. To wrap it up, in conclusion, the Shahada is often called the best Zikr. As we have seen throughout the series, it encapsulates all Sufi teachings and practices. And when we say La ilah, we let everything other than God fall away until illallah. We connect to subsist, to be in baqa, purely with the divine. Wallahu alam. Allah Hafiz.